Hello students, we have already discussed different parameter passing methods between the calling function and the called function. Since the functions are independent blocks of code and each function does a specific task, this is also called as a divide and conquer approach or modelization. That is, each module is assigned a specific task and each function behaves as a module which performs a specific job. Now each function can be taken as a small subprogram which is called by another function. So in case of functions, there are always two functions involved. One is the calling function and another is the called function. The calling function is also called as a caller and the called function is called as a callee. Now the calling function wants some job to be done by the called function, so there needs to be some sort of communication between the calling function and the called function. And for communicating we use variables to pass data from the calling function to the called function or from the caller to the calling. Now once we pass data, there are three methods of passing the data or arguments from the calling function to the called function. The arguments that are passed from the calling function are called as actual arguments or actual parameters, and the arguments where the values of these actual arguments or actual parameters are received by the called function are called as formal arguments or formal parameters. Now actual arguments can be passed to the function, that is the called function, by three methods. One is pass by value, one is pass by reference, and one is pass by address. These methods actually differ in the way that once the actual argument is passed from the calling function to the called function, whether that actual argument is accessible in the called function or just a copy of the data is passed to the called function. If the actual argument is accessible, we have two methods for that. One is pass by a reference and other is pass by address. And if only the copy is accessible, that is called as pass by value. Okay, so in pass by reference and pass by address, if we make changes in the formal argument, they are reflected in the actual argument. We have seen this in previous video. But in pass by value, if the actual argument is passed to the called function and it is received in the formal argument or formal parameter, any changes made in the formal parameter are not reflected in the actual argument. Now why we do it? It depends on the application, which method we'll be using. And simply the difference is that in pass by reference and pass by address, we are able to overcome the scope of local variables. That is, we are able to access the local variables of the calling function in the called function, and in call by value we are not accessing them, but we are provided with the value or copy of the value stored in these variables. Okay, we have already discussed it. Now this is the point of interest for me today, that once we pass variables of different data types as actual arguments, it is possible to pass actual arguments or actual parameters of different data types to the called function. That is, the calling function can provide actual arguments which are of different data types. Now, since the variables are of two types, one is local variables and global variables. Global variables are those variables which are declared outside the body of any function. That is, these declarative statements are not part of body of any function, and these global variables are allocated memory when the program execution starts, and the memory deallocation is done to the global variables when the program execution ends. So that way global variables are different from the local variables, because in case of local variables the memory is allocated once the function is called to the local variables, and memory is deallocated from them once the control comes out of the function. We have also discussed that in detail. So memory remains with the local arguments till the control is within the function, that is, till the time the function is being executed, or till all of its statements have been executed. Okay. Now, global variables are also called as shared variables because they are accessible to all the functions of the program. But local variables are called as internal variables because they are used within a particular function. But we can access these or use these variables in other functions also, provided we pass them by reference or by address. So actually calling or passing by method of a function provides an alternative to overcome the scope or visibility of a local variables. That is, these local variables can be accessed in the called functions, and any changes made to them in the called function will be reflected in the local variables of the calling function, that is, in the actual arguments of the calling function. Now, global variables can be also used as actual parameters, but they are not passed as actual parameters because they are accessible to all the functions. Now, they can also store the return values, but they are not used in return statements. How this is achieved, we'll see it after some time once I go into IT and write some code there. So global variables can be of following data types. Global variables can be of primitive data types. That is, we can have global variables which are of type character, int, float and double. Since character, int, float and double are called as primitive data types or fundamental data types or compiler defined data types or primary data types. Now we have got another type of data types that are available in C and C++. We have in C we have only structures, but in C++ we have data types such as classes and structures. These are called as user defined data types. We have discussed classes and structures. We have seen they act as templates for user defined data types, and they are also called as abstract data types. Now, so in the user defined data types we have structures and classes. Now we have got derived data types. In derived data types we have got arrays and pointers. Now arrays can be of primitive data type or user defined data types. That is, we can have integer, character, float or double arrays, or we can have array of structures or array of objects. Okay. Now, rather we should say array of structure variables and array of objects. So in derived data types we have mainly arrays and pointers. Now pointers can be again of two types, that is, they can be of primitive data types, that is pointers with data type character, integer, float or number, or they can be object pointers or structure pointers, where they have data types of the type of structure or classes from which they are declared. Okay. Now local variables can be used as actual arguments. Local variables are used to pass data from the calling function to the called function. Again, local variables can be of following type. They can be primitive, as I have already told and defined what are primitive data types, same as global data type, but local variables are declared within a function. Now they can be of user defined data type. These are also same as global variables, but declared within a function. Now derived data types, again same as global variables, but declared within a function. All of these data types, that is whether they are primitive, user defined or derived, and whether the variable can be passed to the by value or by reference or by address to a function. But this pass by value, pass by reference and pass by address is used for local variables only. Okay, so global variables are not used actually as actual arguments. They are not passed as actual arguments, but they can be used as actual arguments. What I mean by this, you will see once we will go into the IDE, because global variables, again, they are shared variables. They are accessible to all functions. We have discussed local and global variables. So let us go into IDE and see what I mean by that. Now, let us declare a global variables of type integer, say number 1, say it is global g, comma, number 2 is again say global. I am putting g so that you understand it is global. It's not required otherwise. Number 3, or let me call it the answer, and again it is global. Now these three variables are of type integer, so therefore these three variables are of primitive data type integer. Okay, we can again have global variables of type character, say j. This is a global variable because it is declared outside the body of all functions. This declarative statement does not lie within the body of any function. So these variables are global variables. Now I can have a float type variable, say h, and I can have double type global variable, say m. Now these are the global variables that are of primitive data type, that is either of type int, char, float or double, and they can be used in any function because they are accessible in all the functions, and memory is allocated to the global variables at the beginning of the execution, and memory is taken from them when the program execution ends. Okay, so their lifetime or longevity is till the end of the program, and their scope or visibility is within all the functions, since they can be accessed in all the functions. Now let us declare three functions. Suppose sum, in which I am finding the sum of two global variables, say number 1 g plus number 2 g, and store the answer in a global variable, answer g. Okay, so I am adding the sum of these two global variables, that's number 1 g and number 2 g, and storing it in answer g. Okay, now in main I clear the screen first, then I input the first number, see out, enter the first number. Okay, now I enter the value of a global variable in the main using the cin statement, say number 1 g. Okay, then I enter value of copy it, enter the second number, okay. Then I enter number 2, okay. Now after that I call sum function, okay. Since number 1 and number 2 are global variables, they are accessible within the main, and I can input them, I can display them, their contents, and I can use them in assignment statements. So I have entered the value of two global variables in the main, okay. Now after this I am calling a sum function, and in that I am finding the sum of two global variables, that is number 1 and number 2, okay. Then I can display the value of the answer, that is cout. Let us now run this program. There is another verse. Terminator here. Now let us run the program. First I clear the screen, then I display the message, enter the first number, then I enter the first number, say I enter the value as 12. Then I enter the second number, I display the message, I enter the second number, say as 3, okay. Then I call the sum function. Do I pass any actual arguments to the sum? No, because in the definition of the sum there are no actual arguments, right? And the return type should have been actually void. Let us change that later, it does not matter. Now in sum, once I call sum, I am accessing the values of number 1g and number 2g, and I have already entered their values. Let us watch it. Answer G, you can watch that also. Number 1G, okay. Watch also. Number 2. Okay, and let us unhold this. Now, see, if number 1 I have entered the value 12 from the keyboard, and number 2 I have entered value 3 from the keyboard, answer has the value G because this statement has not been executed. Now, in the sum function I am adding the two numbers, that is these two global variables, and I get the answer, that is total answer of G, okay. Then once I go into the main, I display the value of answer of G. How much is the answer? You can check. Answer is 15. So 12 plus 3 is 15, okay. But if you observe that we did not actually pass the two actual arguments in the sum, but we accessed number 1 and number 1g and number 2g in sum, but we entered the value of number 1g and number 2g in the main. Therefore main is supplying the data not in the form of actual arguments but in the form of two global variables. So in other words, the communication is taking place between the main and the sum. The values, the main is giving it some data which the sum is processing, and the sum is finding the sum of these two numbers and returning it to the main, and in the main we got the answer, that is the sum of two numbers in answer of G, without actually returning a value from the sum. Okay, here we should have mentioned the return as what. Okay. This is fine. Did we actually use the actual arguments in the function call? No, but we were having the data available in the sum that was provided by the main. Did we actually use the return statement in the sum? No, but we were actually returning the value from the sum that was stored in answer of G. So the global variables can be used as arguments without actually passing them as arguments in the function call, and then we can also return the value with the help of global variables. Okay, then let us do some more operations, and I will call this function now as, say, operation function, which performs addition of the numbers. Let me use two variables again, global variables that will store result of multiplication and result of subtraction. Okay, then in the operation function I can say multiplication is equal to number 1 G into number 2 G. Okay, now I am multiplying the two numbers and storing the answer in mul. Then I can say subtraction is equal to number 1 G minus number 2 G. Okay, now here I can say in the main I can access these global variables as I did answer as I accessed answer of G. If you see here, now I can say the result of multiplication, I can say short mul of the two numbers is equal to mul, and I can say the difference of two numbers is stored in global variable sum. Okay, let us now call this function again. Okay, instead of sum I'll call, because I changed the name of sum, I'll call this function as now operation function. Okay, now once I call the operation function, if you see I enter the first number in the main. Once I execute this program, suppose say 12 again, then I again enter the second number in the main, that is number 2, say 3, then I call the operation function. Okay, now the operation function operates on the data that is actually passed by the main to the operation function, not through the actual arguments, and operation function is not received through the formal arguments, but actually the transfer of data is taking from the calling function to the called function, not via what you call actual and formal parameters, but through shared variables or global variables. Okay, now I am computing the three answers here, that is I am computing three results, that is the addition of the two numbers, then multiplication of the two numbers, and if you see addition of the two numbers, that answer is correct. I can again add watch. I can see what's stored in sub, that is 0 because subtraction has not been performed, multiplication has been performed. If you see what's stored in mul, you will see multiplication has a characteristic, that is 36, that is 12 into 3. Okay, then the subtraction again has 9. Now once I go into main, this multiplication mul global variable, sub global variable, and answer G are available in the main also. For that is, their access is available in the main also. Now what happens, I can access these variables and they have stored answers of, that's addition of two numbers, multiplication of two numbers, and subtraction of the two numbers. In other words, I am getting three answers from the operation. In other words, I am returning the three values from the operation function. This is how multiple arguments can be passed to the operation functions, and return values, multiple return values can be obtained from a function using global variables. So global variables can be also used to pass what you call parameters, but not the way we do with the local variables, but in a different way, because global variables are accessible within the function which is called, and they are also accessible in the function which has called a particular function, that is in the caller. So that way the global variables can be used to return multiple values from a function. Okay, now this is how we can use global variables as parameters to the function without actually passing them as actual parameters, and without actually receiving them as a formal arguments. And we can also use the global variables to return the multiple values or a single value from the function without actually using them in return statements. Okay, now so global variables are not actually passed in the function call, but they are indirectly passed because they are shareable and accessible within all the functions. Now we can have global variables of the primitive data type, we can have global variables of the user defined data type. I have shown you the primitive data type global variables. Now I can go ahead and show you how we can have local variables of the primitive data type as arguments. Okay, now let me declare a say another variable of type character, say the, okay, we call this as I. Now another variable of type float data type, and another variable of type double. Now let us use an example function in which I am passing these arguments. I'll write the call first, then I'll define the function. Example, I can pass I, second argument is a character variable, third argument is a float variable, and fifth argument is a double variable. Okay, now I received them in the example. The way we have, okay, now I define the example. Suppose the return type I keep as void. Now in a call to example, I have passed I, which is of type integer, therefore first formal argument should be of the same type. So I can receive int, say I'll name it I, but this I is different from the I of the main, okay, which I have declared in the main. Then I can, second argument should be of character type, third argument should be of float type F, and fourth argument should be of type double. Okay, now I close. This is the first line of the function, then after that comes body of the function. In this function, what I am trying to show you, how the values are passed to a function, or how the parameters are passed to a function. Okay, now I am using 4 parameters, that is 4 actual parameters, and I am receiving them in 4 formal parameters. The data type of each is a rule that the data type of the actual parameter should match with the data type of the corresponding parameter. Then only that parameter or that variable can store that parameter. So if I am passing the integer I have to receive it in an integer variable. Okay. Now, similarly, if I am passing C, I have to receive it in a character C. Okay, in a variable whose data type is character. If I am passing a float F, I should receive it in a variable whose data type is float. So I think it is clear now that the data type of the corresponding actual and formal parameters should match. Okay, they should be type compatible. Now let us pass I by value. Now I have got another character. I initialize it to constant O. I have got F. I initialize it to 2.7. Then I have got T. I initialize it to 8.9. Okay. Now I am passing these arguments, that is to the example. Who is actually passing? It is the main who is calling the example. Therefore, it is passing these arguments, and the actual arguments are I, C, F, and D. And these arguments are initialized in the main. We can equally input these arguments, since that will be time consuming to show you the execution of that way. Therefore, I have used initial values, and this way it will be also clear. Okay. Now, if I pass these values or arguments to the function example, let us see what happens. Now in the function, what I will do, I will change the value of I to 20. Then I will change value of C to constant P. Then I will change value of float F to 0.76. Then I will change value of a double argument, which I have not. I should have given the name here. So double CD. I'll change its value also to 0.8. I am simply writing this function to show you how actual arguments are passed to the formal or passed to the function, and how their copy is, or what is the method of receiving them in the formal arguments. In this case, I am passing I, C, F, and D, and I am receiving it in I, C, F, and D. I could have named I, C, F, and D differently, but this way debugging will be easier and you will be able to follow also. So I'll watch now I, and I will watch C. I will watch F. I will watch F, and I will watch D. Okay. Now let us call this function. Okay. Once I call example, if you see I, C, and F and D are initialized to the values that I have supplied. That is, I initialized 10, C is initialized to 0, C is initialized, I is initialized to 10, C is initialized to 0, F is initialized to 2.7, and D is initialized to 8.9. You can see it in the watch windows. Now the copy of these arguments is passed to the function. Copy means the value of these arguments will be passed to the function. Okay, because in this method I am using call by value method, or I am using the parameter passing method, that is passing by value. Now if you see, if I change the value of I, you see in the watch window it changes to 20, C changes to P, F changes to 0.7 and D changes to 0.8. But once I come back to the main, you see the values of the local variables of the main has not changed, because in what happens in pass by value, the copy of the values stored in actual arguments is passed to the formal arguments. So you are simply passing a copy of the value and you are receiving it in a formal arguments. Okay. Now I'll be using same example to show you how we can pass second variable by reference, that is variable C. Once you pass variable C by reference, you have to receive it in a reference. Okay. And I'll be passing third variable F with address. That in that case I have to give the address of F. Okay. And fourth variable D I'll be passing by value. It is not necessary that we can use only one passing method of the parameters. We can use all the methods in a single call. So I am passing I by copy, I am passing C by reference, and I am passing F by address. If I am passing I by copy, I receive it in an integer, and if I am passing C by reference, I am receiving it in a reference variable. Now reference variable is the second name for the same variable, and let us name it as AC. Okay. Then here I have to change AC. Okay. Now I am passing the third variable, that actual argument is the address, so I receive it in a pointer. This is the rule. If you pass by copy, you receive it in the same data type. If you pass by reference, then you receive it in a reference. The actual argument is same as a variable name in pass by reference, but the change is in the formal argument where you create a reference variable by using an ampersand sign. Okay. But in call to address, passing by address or call by address, what you are doing, you are receiving it in a pointer, and you will make now changes to the pointer. So the name of the variable whose address is passed, the contents of the variable actual argument whose address is passed and received in a pointer will be accessed by using a star operator, because name of location, that location will be star of F. I have shown that in a video on pointers. Okay. Now D is again passed by what you call value. So if you pass an argument and receive it in a formal argument of simple data type or primitive data type without using the ampersand or star, then it is actually passing by value. Now if you place an ampersand sign between the data type and the formal argument, it is passed by reference. Now if you have got a star sign before the formal argument, it is passed by address. Okay. Since D does not have a star sign prefix or ampersand, it is passed by value. Okay. Now let me explain this. Let us call example. Kindly note down the value of I, C, F and D on your copies. You will see now I have initialized to 10. C I am passing I by copy. C I have initialized to O. Okay. F I have initialized to 2.7. You can see in the watch window, and D I have initialized to 8.9. Okay. But since I am passing I by what you call copy, C by reference, and F by address, and D by value or copy, let us see what happens. Now I make change to I make change, I is now 20, I make change to AC, I change it to what you call P. Okay. Now I change the contents of the variable whose address is stored in a pointer with that pointer. In other words, I am changing the contents of the actual argument F. Okay, whose address I am passing in the pointer F. Okay. Now I change the contents of the that argument with F by using a star operator on it, since F is a pointer. Now I change the contents of D also. Okay, actually this I is different from the I of the main, because this I is the local variable of example. Now AC is a reference variable of C. Therefore AC is a second name of the C, and AC is bound to the C. AC does not store the value, but it is bound to the same location as C. As I have explained, what are reference variables? Reference variables are names given to the variables, that is already existing variables. You can give them second names or third names. These are also called aliases, and once we have received it as a reference, whatever changes we will be making to the reference will be made to the variable it is referring to. Now the third argument is a pointer f, and it receives the address of the f of that is the local variable of the main, which has been passed as an actual argument. Since f points to the f of the main, therefore whatever changes I'll be making through the f will be reflected in the f of the main, which is the actual argument to an example. Okay, now the last argument is the D, which is of type double. Since it does not have as its prefix as a star or a ampersand symbol between double and D, therefore it is passed by copy or value. So whatever changes I make to D will not be reflected in the actual argument or the local variable D of the main. Now if you see here in the watch window, we have got I initialized to 20. Now C, instead of C we have got AC. That is why it is showing C as undefined symbol, because right now we are executing example, and I have changed the contents of F through the pointer, and I have changed the contents of C through the reference, and I have changed the contents of D also. Let us see where the changes will be reflected once we return back to the main. Okay, once we return back to the main, if you see the I of the main has not changed because I was passed by value, okay, or copy. Now there is change in the contents of C because C was passed by reference. There is change in the contents of F, since F was 2.77, now it has been changed to 0.7. Therefore local variable of main has changed. Therefore there is a change in F because it is passed by pointer. Okay, in D there is no change because D is still 8.9. Therefore in I and D there are no changes because they are passed by value. In C there is a change because it is passed by reference, and in F there is a change because it is passed by address. Okay, now we have seen that if we pass the actual argument by the copy, its value remains unchanged. If we pass the actual argument by reference or pointer, its value changes. Okay, and the changes are reflected in the original variable. now why we have pass by reference and pass by pointer or pass by address? Because that way we are able to do one thing, that is we are able to access the variables or local variables of the calling function in the called function. That is, we can change them in the called function. We can change their contents in the called function. Okay, secondly, since the change is reflected back in the calling function, therefore these variables which have been passed by reference or address, they can be used to return multiple results from the called function. So the advantage of, or why we are using parameter passing by reference and by pointer, simply because of this method it would be possible to return multiple values from the called function. If we store the two or three results in the called function in the variables which have been passed by reference or by address, we can see those changes in the calling function. Normally, a function will only return one value, but by using the call by address or call by reference, a function can be made to return multiple values. By returning multiple values, we mean we can store multiple results in the variables which are passed by reference or by pointer, okay, and we can access them back in the calling function, okay. Today we have seen how we can pass the primitive variables by reference, by address, and by value. We have also seen how we can pass global variables to a function. Actually, the global variables, as we have seen, are not passed as arguments, but since they can be accessed in the function directly, therefore they can be treated as a means of communication between the calling function and the call function. The calling function can input different values in the global variables, and these values can be then accessed in the called function. In other words, they serve as a means of communication between the calling function and the call function. Calling function can pass the different values or arguments to the called function via global variables. Similarly, global variables can be used to return multiple results from the called function. We have already explained that. Today we have seen how we can pass primitive variables, that is variables of type character, int, double, and float, whether they are local or global, into the function as actual arguments and receive them in the formal arguments, okay. Now we have one more concept to explain, that is the function prototype. We have seen the type of the actual arguments should match with the formal arguments, okay. If the actual argument is a constant, it should be received in a formal argument which is capable of storing it. We have not seen this. And if the actual argument is a variable of primitive data type, or structure variable, or object of a class, or array or pointer of the primitive data type, or arrays or pointers of objects and structures, okay, then it should be received in the formal argument of the same type, okay. That is, if the actual argument is a variable of type character, int, float, or double, it should be received in a variable of type character, int, float, or double. And if the actual argument is a structured variable, it should be received in the formal argument which is of type structure variable. Now, if the actual argument is the object, then it should be received in an object. And if the actual argument is an array, then it should be received in an array. If it's a pointer, then it should be received in a pointer. And array and pointers can be of primitive data type, that is character, int, float, and double. And array or pointers can be of user-defined data types, that is array of objects and array of structures, okay. Now I was talking about function prototype. When a function is called, before it is defined, the compiler reports an error. Let us see this, what is meant by this. Suppose I declare a function here after main. We can define a function after the main. Let us define a function after the main. A function can be defined anywhere, but it should not be defined within the body of another function. This is a rule. Function definition can occur anywhere, but it should not be defined in the body of any function. That is, we cannot have nesting of function definitions because each function is an independent block of code. Now let us define a function after a main, okay. Suppose it's an integer function and it returns an integer, and it's a sum function which does the sum of two numbers. A simple function I'm taking because I have to explain the concept of the prototype here. Then I take two numbers A and B as arguments, and this function does the sum of these two numbers. That means we have another variable integer answer, and in answer I can save the sum of A and B. Okay, then I return an answer. Okay, now suppose main is calling the sum function, okay, and it is passing two arguments, suppose 2 comma 3 to the sum function. Let us see what will happen in this case. Let me compile and see what the compiler says. Now we got an error that the function sum should have a prototype. Why we got this error? Why did the compiler report an error? As I told you, the execution always begins from the main, but the compiler compiles the program from top to bottom. So it will compile the statements right from the top. The first statement in this program, suppose, is hash include iostream.h. So once the compiler starts compilation, it will start from top, that's the first statement, until the end. Once the compiler compiles this program, since the call to the function sum is encountered by the compiler before the function definition itself. So the compiler does not have any idea about the formal parameters and their data types, because the definition has been made after the fact. Since the compiler does not have any idea about how many formal parameters are there and what are their data types, it does not know how many actual arguments should be passed from the main to the function, and it does not know about the data types of those arguments as well. Okay, so the compiler reports an error. Now you could have even called the sum with 3 arguments. Let us do that also. Let us see how the compiler responds to this. Again there is an error. Function sum should have prototype. Otherwise, in this case, it should have if the function would have been defined before calling it, then the compiler would have reported the error for the second statement as it has got an extra parameter in its call. Okay, let us see this. Okay, so the compiler does not have any idea about how many actual arguments should be passed to the function or what should be their data type, but this would have been a limitation, that we will not have been able to define a function later and call it before its definition. This would have been a limitation. What is the way out? Simply we have to write the first line of the function, and I will copy it at the top. We can now place it here, and once we place this statement at the top about the first line, that is of the function which has been defined later but has been called before it is defined. Now when the compiler will this time start compiling this program, it encounters the first line of the function which has been defined later. By this first line, it will get an information about the number of actual arguments, which are 2, and their data type, that their data type should be integer. Okay, now let us compile and see what happens. There is no error because compiler has the pre-information about this function sum which has been defined later. Now why should the compiler have this pre-information? I have told you. Now let us call this function sum with, say, suppose 3 arguments. Now even though the function definition will be compiled later, but since the compiler has the pre-information about the function, by this line that I have written at the top before calling the function, it is a sufficient information for the compiler to ascertain all the calls to the function, whether they are relevant or not. Let us compile this program and see what is the error. What is the error? There's an extra parameter, because through this line the compiler knew in advance that later on there is going to be the function that will be defined later, that is after calling it, and that function should have only two parameters. Since I put the extra parameter, it gave me the what you call the error. What was the error? That there is an extra parameter in call to the sum, so it won't allow this call. Earlier, when I did not have this line, the function accepted, the compiler accepted this line. It did not report any error. It only reported the error that the function should have a prototype. Now this line itself is the prototype that we have given at the top. This prototype is also called as a function declaration. Let me declare another function. Say suppose int. I will call this as difference function. Now I should define it after the prototype. Now if I got int, okay, I call it as a difference function. It accepts the two arguments, int a comma int b. Here I am defining the function itself, that is I am defining the function, that is I am giving the function declarator, that is the first line of the function and the body of the function. Now I can say int answer, okay, then I can say answer is equal to, this is a normal function, very simple function, a minus b. Then I can say return answer. What we did so far was like this, because I had not taught you the concept of the prototype, therefore I did not call the function before what you called defining it, so I avoided that. Now I have given you the concept. Now let me call difference. If I call difference with the two arguments, since I have not given the prototype for the difference, but since the compilation will begin from the top, the first line, that is this int sum, int a, int b, gives the compiler a pre-information that the programmer gives this information to the compiler that he is going to define the sum function later, but the sum function will have two formal arguments and the return type would be int. So the prototype gives information about the formal arguments, their data types, and the return type. Okay, now since I have defined another function, that is difference, and I will be calling it in a main, in this case I won't get an error. Why? Because once the compilation begins from the top, the compiler encounters the function definition first. So if once the function is called in the main, the compiler already has the information about the formal parameters, their data types, and the return type of the function, so that the compiler can determine what type of actual arguments will be passed to the function and what type of return values that function will be returning. Okay, now since we will compile this and we will see there is no error, but for such functions which are called later and we have already defined them, here the difference is called but it has been already defined, you won't get the error that the function should have a prototype, because the compiler already has got the sufficient information to determine the moment it gets a or encounters a function call, it already has the information what should be the type of actual arguments and what should be the return type. Okay, now in this case we can say the first line of the function difference serves both as a prototype or the function declaration and the function declarator. The first line serves both as a prototype and the function declarator. That is why in many books the first line is called as function declaration. Okay, but actually the first line of the function, that is this line in which we define the return type and the formal arguments and their data types, this line is actually called as a function declarator. But for those functions which are called after they have been defined, for such functions this line serves as what you call function prototype. Okay, now if I call, suppose this is just to show you sum within the difference function, and let me remove the call here in the main, and let me remove the prototype here. Would we get an error? Yes, we should get error. Why? We are calling a function sum before it has been defined. Okay, now again we will get an error. What is the error? Sum should have a prototype, because I removed the prototype and the function has been called before it has been defined. So it is not necessary always that the function will be called by main. The function can be called by any other function. This is a rule. Any function can call any other function, but it is a rule that if the function has been defined before the call, then there is no problem and we can skip the prototype. But if the function has been called before it has been defined, in that case we should have a prototype. So let us write the prototype. You can write it, I will copy it. Okay, the prototype is this line, the first line of the function. I'll copy it and then I'll put it here, that is before the call. Okay, now I won't get an error. If I compile, I won't get an error. So because once since the compilation starts from the top, the compiler will first encounter this prototype, and it actually knows what should be the data type of the formal arguments and what should be the return type of the formal arguments. Then later on, if it encounters the call, it is able to determine how many number of the actual arguments should be passed and what should be the return type of the function. Okay, and in case of mismatch, it will report an error. Okay, now let us try to pass something different instead of an integer. Okay, char a of suppose 90 characters. Now I trying to pass a of a here. Sorry, a, I cannot name it a because a already exists, one variable s. I can say s now. Now once I compile, what is the error? What is the error? Cannot convert character star to integer. Since you are passing character array to the function, but in the prototype of the sum it has been defined that first argument should be a integer, so the compiler reports an error. In the absence of the prototype, the compiler did not have this information, so the first argument has to be the integer. Okay, this type of mismatch was reported by the compiler because compiler already has been provided with the prototype of the sum. Now you can give the prototype by simply specifying the data types of the formal arguments and not giving the names of the formal arguments. This will also work. Okay, so this works. So the in the prototype, what is the information you give? You give the information about the return type of the function, about the name of the function, about the what you call the data type of the formal arguments. Note, the name of the formal arguments is not required, it is optional. So this is the concept of the prototype. Now let us see functions called before it is defined. The compiler reports an error. Why it reports an error? Because the function the compiler should have the information about the function's formal arguments, their data types and return types, and the name of the function, but the compiler does not have this information. Since the compilation begins from top to the bottom, the compiler has not encountered the definition of a function, so it does not have that information. What was the way out? The way out was that we have to give function declaration of the prototype. Since the function declaration of the prototype provides the information to the compiler, when the function call is encountered, the compiler checks the function call with the prototype, and it is able to determine the following things, that is whether the name of the function is correct in the function call, whether the return type of the function is correct in the function call, and whether the number and the type of arguments, that is actual arguments, is matches with the formal arguments. The compiler then informs the user about the violations. In case the user has made the call, suppose with more number of arguments, or it does not have the what you call type compatibility of the actual arguments with the formal arguments, the compiler reports the error. And in case the return type also does not match with the return type of the variable, the return type does not match with the the data type of the variable in which you are assigning the return value of the function, the compiler reports that also. Okay, so another important point was that execution does not take place from top to bottom. It always starts from the main, but the compilation always takes from top to bottom. And before the execution, the compilation is always precedes the execution. So today we have learned how to pass the primitive data type local or global variables to the function, and we have seen this, but actually we have to see three things: how we pass primitive data type variables to the function, as well as user-defined data types to the function, as well as derived data types to the function. Now these derived data types or user-defined data types or primitive data type variables can be local or global. We have to see both the scenarios. Today we have seen the scenario how we can pass primitive data type global variables and local variables to the function. Okay, and we have seen by passing by reference or passing by what we call address of the global of the local variables, we can overcome the scope of the local variables. That is, we can access them in the call function, and we can change them in the call function, and the changes will be reflected in the caller or the calling function. Since the changes will be reflected in the calling function, so we can use those variables which have been passed by reference or by address as the return values from the function. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. Thank you.